यस्य रूपमधिकम् प्रच्छन्नगुप्तं धनम् विद्या भोगकरी यशः सुखकरी विद्या गुरुणा गुरुः विद्या बन्धुजनो विदेशगमने विद्या परं दैवतम् विद्या राजसु पूज्यते न तु धनम् विद्या विहीनः पशुः विद्या प्रशस्यते लोकैः विद्या सर्वत्र गौरवा विद्यया लभते सर्वम् विद्वान् सर्वत्र पूज्यते ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते।
Dr. Tejashree Deshmukh is the director at PTVAIM Vidyalaya Association's PTVAIM Institute of Management. She was awarded the National Merit Scholarship and also won a gold medal in psychology. An alumnus of Narsi Munji Institute of Management Studies, she comes with a good blend of industry and academic experience with specialization in human resources. She is a member of the Ad hoc Board of Studies in Management at University of Mumbai. Additionally, she is appointed as a Vice Chancellor's nominee on various university committees including the appointment of the director and faculty members at various MMS institutes. She has successfully undertaken and completed paid research projects that would be of benefit to the academics and the society at large. Dr. Tejashree has authored several research papers in high-index research journals, including Scopus, ABDC, and Web of Science. She is also a PhD center head at PTVAIM's Institute of Management and is currently guiding 6 PhD research students. She has conducted corporate training programs for organizations such as Indian Oil Adani Ventures, II&FS, Kohinoor Group of Companies, Indigo Airlines, etc. Apart from her contribution to academics, she is willing to conduct in-depth research to initiate remarkable reforms for the LGBTQ community issues. So let's welcome Vidyavachaspati, Dr. Tejashree Deshmukh.
Namaskar. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate our parent trust, PTVAIM Vidyalaya Association, for this novel initiative of Vidyavachaspati, which is aimed at encouraging PhD research and also a way of appreciating the faculty members of PTVA who have successfully completed their PhD while handling many other responsibilities at work and on home front. I am going to divide my today's session into 2 parts. 1. Eligibility and process of PhD admission and registration. This is for those who want to pursue PhD but are unaware of the process. Second is going to be discussion on my PhD thesis. So let's start with the first part. Let's understand the eligibility criteria, admission and registration process and duration of the PhD program. To be eligible to pursue PhD, one must hold a master's degree in the area in which one wants to pursue PhD with a minimum of 55% marks. Relaxation of 5% is allowed to the candidates belonging to the reserved category. Alternatively, one must possess a professional degree equivalent to master's degree approved by UGC, that is University Grants Commission. Passing of PET, that is PhD entrance test, is yet another thing which is required for being eligible to pursue PhD. A candidate must take PET in the area in which he or she wants to pursue PhD. PET has two papers of 50 marks each. One in the area of research methodology and another one is the subject specific paper. Passing criteria for PET is getting 50% aggregate marks covering both the papers. Candidates who have cleared NET, SET, SLATE, GATE or are MPhil holders get an exemption from appearing for PET. Those who meet the eligibility criteria can send their applications to the PhD research centers of the university. An advertisement in the local newspaper is released by the university and the PhD research centers mentioning the number of vacant seats and the area in which the PhD can be done. PhD research centers, after due scrutiny of the applications, invite the eligible candidates for the interview. Candidates are expected to give a presentation to the committee about the proposed research area. If the proposal is accepted by the committee, candidate is required to complete the admission process by submitting the required documents and payment of fees. For every admitted student, the center forms a research advisory committee, or RAC as we call it, which guides the student to finalize the research topic and develop the research design. Every admitted student is expected to submit his or her work to RAC at least once in every 6 months and work on the improvements suggested by them. The research proposal thus prepared is submitted to the Research and Recognition Committee, RRC as we call it, of the university for their approval. If RRC accepts the proposal, the candidate is required to complete the formalities and register himself or herself with the university as a PhD student. In some cases, RRC may suggest minor changes in the topic or the proposal. In such cases, the candidate is required to communicate his or her consent to RRC through the PhD Research Center and then registered with the university. If the RRC rejects the topic or the proposal, then the candidate is required to work on the fresh proposal following the process mentioned earlier and then submit the proposal to RRC for their approval. PhD program is minimum of 3 years and maximum of 6 years. The PhD student is allowed to submit the PhD thesis earliest after completing 3 years from the date of admission or registration, whichever is the earlier. But the student has to complete minimum 1 year post-registration for being eligible to submit the thesis, even if he or she has completed 3 years post-admission. Extension up to 4 semesters can be granted based on the recommendation by the PhD guide and approval of the RRC, that is Research and Recognition Committee of the university. 2 additional years of extension is allowed to women candidates and persons with disability. Coursework is an essential component of PhD which every PhD students must undergo and complete successfully. This coursework has a lot of emphasis on the research methodology. Unless the student knows a systematic way of conducting research, he or she cannot work effectively on the thesis. Coursework comprises of sessions on research methodology, workshops and seminars that are required to be attended, faculty development programs, and also a couple of Swayam courses related to the research area of the PhD student. This coursework is essential for every PhD student to develop the conceptual understanding and equips the student with strong research skills and deep subject knowledge. The two most crucial aspects of a PhD that a PhD student must focus on would be literature review and research methodology. A literature review is absolutely crucial in PhD research as it provides background, identifies knowledge gaps, helps in avoiding duplication, facilitates building theoretical frameworks, and establishes the relevance and methodology of the study effectively. It helps to situate your work within the existing scholarly conversation to ensure originality and impact. It offers a comprehensive understanding of what is already known, preventing redundant research and highlighting areas needing new investigation. Research methodology. Another crucial component in PhD research as it provides the essential roadmap, ensuring the study is systematic, valid, and reliable. It provides guidance about data collection, analysis, and interpretation to produce credible original work and helps in filling knowledge gaps. It lends legitimacy, allows for replication, justifies choices, and helps navigate ethical concerns, keeping the complex PhD project focused and manageable. Every PhD student is required to present before RSC his or her learning or takeaways from the PhD coursework. RSC then advises or guides the student periodically on what kind of modifications or corrections are required in his or her research work. PhD guide is the one who is giving the required direction to the student all throughout the process of PhD journey. Now let's come to the second part of this episode, that is my PhD thesis. Let me clarify here right in the beginning that I did not start my PhD for the growth prospects in academics. In fact, I was not even associated with academics when I started my PhD. My sole reason to start working on my PhD was that my son wanted his mother to be a doctor, and that was the starting point of my PhD journey. Being born and raised in a family which is closely associated with the aviation industry, selecting a topic related to aviation for my PhD was only natural. I started working on my PhD proposal in 2007. Foreign direct investment was allowed for the first time in aviation sector by the government of India in 2000. Indian aviation industry started booming since then, and by 2007 Indian aviation industry witnessed a growth of around 18% per annum. In 2006-7 alone, the air travelers in India increased by 38.5%. Experts predicted doubling these numbers over the next one decade. However, India was not really prepared to handle this growth in terms of the infrastructure and skilled manpower. The most important aspect of skilled manpower for an aviation industry is the availability of skilled commercial pilots. Being MBA in HR and a part of family business, which was closely associated with airports and aircrafts, selecting the topic recruitment and retention practices of commercial pilots in Indian aviation industry was an obvious choice. Growth of aviation industry anywhere in the world would be impossible in the absence of availability of skilled commercial pilots. Here, we must understand that getting a commercial pilot who possesses the skills, expertise, and experience that an airline needs is not an easy task, and hence, recruitment of commercial pilots is something which must be studied very carefully, and sound practices must be in place for this recruitment. There is a major misconception in the mind of a layman about the eligibility of becoming a commercial pilot. People think that anyone who holds a commercial pilot license, or CPL as we call it, can fly the commercial flight. This is not true. Holding a valid CPL is the basic requirement, but that is not sufficient. Even a CPL holder has to be type rated. What does it mean? He or she must be trained on a particular aircraft with minimum number of flying hours to be eligible to fly that particular aircraft as a scheduled flight. This is both a costly and time consuming affair. However, around 2000 to 2005, people started getting to know about the demand for commercial pilots that was increasing in India, and knowing how lucrative this job is, many parents wanted their children to become commercial pilots. Many middle class parents spent their entire savings or took out loans to send their children to flying schools abroad to train them to get CPL. However, as I stated earlier, they did not understand that mere CPL will not fetch a job to their children. What was required was getting the type rating done. So, we had a typical situation here where there were many CPL holders in India who were still not employable. What was the solution then? In HR, we speak about two strategies of recruitment: make the employees or buy the employees. Making the employees is like recruiting people without required experience and then training them in your organization. Buying the employees is recruiting those employees who come to you with the required skills and experience. Buying the employees is generally found to be more cost effective than making the employees. But this does not hold true when it comes to commercial pilots. Buying the pilot is always cost effective than making the pilots. When an airline is not able to recruit as many pilots as required by following the buying approach, it goes ahead with the making approach, which is way too time consuming and costly. Real problem starts after this. Many of these pilots who got recruited and trained by Indian air carriers around 2000 to 2007 started getting poached by the airlines in the Middle East, which was also rapidly growing in the aviation sector. Then there was a huge demand supply gap as far as top level pilots that are captains of the flights were concerned. There are multiple factors of recruitment which are required to be taken into consideration when it comes to the captains, and getting and retaining these captains was a major challenge because of the lucrative career opportunities that were available to them outside India. So the objectives of my study comprise of studying the growth in Indian aviation industry, demand for commercial pilots, current trends of recruitment and retention of the pilots, recommending effective sources and methods of recruitment, suggesting effective retention strategies, and to study the impact of effective recruitment and retention strategies on the overall growth of aviation industry in India. Data was collected from 462 commercial pilots and HR executives of 3 airlines having their headquarters in India. Total number of airlines having their headquarter in India was 6 at the time of this study. The study came up with 5 factors of recruitment and 4 factors of retention, which were particularly relevant to the commercial pilots working with Indian air carriers. Statistical tools used to analyze the data were Pearson's correlation, multiple regression, and ANOVA. Study proved that effective recruitment and retention practices of commercial pilots play a significant role in the growth of these airlines, which in turn will lead to the growth of Indian aviation industry. The study helped these airlines to understand the views of commercial pilots about their recruitment and retention. It could be used by these airlines in planning their human resource, in this case, commercial pilots. It could reduce the cost these airlines spent on commercial pilots. It could tackle the problem of shortage of pilots and allow the airlines to grow. And finally, it could help in evolving models for recruitment and retention strategies of commercial pilots. The recent incidences of Indigo Airlines once again reiterated how important the role of effective recruitment and retention strategies play when it comes to commercial pilots. Also, the fact that the government has given approval to 3 new domestic airlines to operate in India shows the growing demand for aviation business, and once again proves that the recruitment and retention of commercial pilots in Indian aviation industry would continue to be a very relevant criterion that would drive the growth of this industry. Thank you.
ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते